As your senator, building a modern transportation system will be one of my priorities because investing in transportation is investing in our people. For many working families, transportation isn't just about getting from one place to another. It's about opportunity. It's about keeping a job, getting an education, and building a better future. A strong economy depends on a strong middle class, and a strong middle class depends on having the tools people need to succeed. That's why transportation matters. When workers can get to work reliably, business can grow. When businesses grow, jobs are created. And when jobs are created, families thrive. Imagine a Guam where opportunity is within reach for everyone. I'm Donna Munikanata, and I approve this message.
Please re-elect Senator Shelley Calvo, number 8 on the Republican side of the ballot. She has served Guam with compassion, integrity, and results. She is rooted in service, guided by balance, and driven by community. She cares.
This is Shelley Calvo, and I approve this message.
Over the past couple of months, the Tenorio Muñoz Barnes or the Gina campaign, the Josh and Tina campaign, I call them the Gina campaign, Jina. You know, just putting Josh and Tina, putting their two names together. Anyway, they would have these pocket meetings, you know, the traditional pocket meetings in campaigns, right? You have to have a lot of money for stuff like that because the food and the drinks are very expensive. It's not like before where it was like basically potluck, like, you know, Calvo Tenorio kind of perfected this where actually it started with Pinko Calvo and then all the way like just the purchasing of food it's anyway. So for the past couple of months, they were having these pocket meetings and they would send out these news releases, and whatever village they would, you know, many of the villages that they would go to, they would start by saying that the mayor has endorsed Josh and Tina. And I thought, there's something going on here, right? Like there's some promise here, like, you know, these mayors at their own political peril, right? Because there's going to be people who are pissed at them for doing, and they have an election in 2 years. And I suppose that's a lot of time for them to explain things to their constituents, right? But still, you know, in the back of my mind, I was thinking something's in it for them. Something's in it for this mayor. Something's in it for this mayor. Something's in it for this vice mayor in order for this endorsement to happen, right? It's a transactional thing. It's the nature of these things. Unfortunately, it's wrong 100%, right? But I was like, what is it? And I wasn't about to go and look at every single village, look at their spending of their non-appropriated funds, looking at what it is that they were getting from the administration, the relatives of the mayors who are being hired into administration positions. All of that kind of investigative work takes a whole lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of energy. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then watching session today, and you know, like sometimes watching session is like it's a hit or miss type of thing, right? Because a lot of times it's very boring, but sometimes a gem comes out. And while I was very displeased with how the Republican majority handled itself during the budget, and I have been relatively displeased. And the way I put it is, I feel like the Republicans haven't been coming to work when it comes to a certain number of issues, including holding the administration accountable. I was very much surprised today when, and it wasn't just Mayor Jesse Allig. It was Senator Chris Duenas, but the absolute star of the show. Like, she gets the Mag Pro Kandit News Award for badassery. Is Jesse Alex, is the Mayor's Council of Guam's executive director, Joy Jean Arceo. She used to be Manzanonia, who stole the show. And I'm going to play you the clip. As I was watching this 10 minutes of back and forth, and the information was kind of going very quickly, right? It didn't occur to me until afterward what was being discussed. I mean, I understood the facts of the matters that were being discussed, that the administration last Friday, according to Georgine Arceo, validated by Ed Byrne, the director of administration, wrote checks, dispersed checks to each of the mayors. 19 checks were written to each of the mayors, either for deposit into their non-appropriated funds account or into their personal accounts, which is wow. For a certain amount of money that each of them would get. I think it was a total of like $1.8 million or something like that. So quite a bit of money. It didn't occur to me until afterward that this was a bribe in front of our faces using public funds, a political bribe using public funds, using appropriations by the legislature for typhoon relief that these mayors were getting from the administration. And I want to talk about that tonight. On the other side of the commercial break, we are going to talk about that, bring you that clip, and get Senator Chris Duenas on the phone to discuss these issues with us in further detail. Stick with us.
Tony and I got married at an early age, and back then, we didn't have much. But from the very beginning, Tony was determined to create a better future for our family. Shortly after we were married, Tony joined the Army, and we moved to our first duty station at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Those weren't always easy years, but they taught us the importance of sacrifice, faith, and commitment. What I've always admired about my husband is that he's the same person at home that people see in the public. He's honest, he's humble, and he genuinely cares about people. He's a devoted husband, a loving father, and a proud grandfather. Tony and I have been together for 43 years, and I've been blessed to stand beside him through every chapter of our lives. I'm Annette Umpinko Ada, and I humbly ask for your support and vote for my husband, Tony Ada, for Governor of Guam.
I'm Tony Ada, and I approve this message. Together, we'll put Guam first.
Transportation, tourism, customs, utilities, and federal and foreign affairs touch every family, every business, every day. Jesse Michael Anderson Lujan believes Guam can be greater together by fighting for cabotage exemption, expanding the Philippine visa waiver program, and opening new doors for tourism investment and opportunity. Vote Jesse Lujan. Leadership you can see. Accountability you can trust.
I'm Jesse Michael Anderson Lujan, and I approve this message.
This past year, we've been focused on moving Guam forward, strengthening oversight in our schools, supporting our veterans, standing up for students and families, and working on policies that open doors for our people. For me, public service has never been about headlines. It's about showing up, listening carefully, and doing the work that matters. There's still more to accomplish, and I'm ready to keep pushing ahead. I'm Senator Vince Borja, and I humbly ask for your continued support.
I don't know. I suppose I'm not surprised that we're having this conversation. It's political season. The election is just in 9 days, 8 days or something. The election's on August 1. And so you're going to, and we're already seeing the dirty campaigning that's happening on both sides. Troll farms that have been hired, highly illegal, because they're like, I 90% guarantee you these are foreign troll farms funded using whatever funds. It's just incredibly illegal according to federal laws, called foreign interference in the United States election, right? We're seeing troll farms being used to attack certain candidates, and we're seeing the upswing that we are used to seeing around this time when, in previous elections, right? And, every administration or every gubernatorial candidate has got their thing. Like, none of them have ever been clean. In 2014, when Calvo Tenorio was running for re-election, the we had those pocket meetings too, and we did those that stuff where the mayor has endorsed us or whatever, right? And most of the Republican and Democrat mayors endorsed Eddie Calvo. It was kind of an easy thing to do because he was extremely popular, but we also understood that um, in when we were the transactional party, right? When we were the ones who were in power and were trying to keep power in 2014, we knew that there was a give and take as well. And the give and take, let me just tell you, I think some mayors got their relatives hired in the administration. You had the chief of staff and the deputy chief of staff running interference and making sure that certain people were hired in different places in unclassified positions, if they qualified for classified positions and stuff like that, right? There was that. But mostly what it was with the transactions with the mayors were things that had public benefit, like, first of all, the issuance of tax refunds. And whenever Eddie Calvo needed to make a bad story go away, he'd look at his fiscal advisor and he'd be like, do we have any cash to let out tax refunds? And she'd be like, yeah, we've got some cash. We'll handle out tax refunds, right? Well, we'll do that. We weren't supposed to do the run today. We'll do but we can do it today if we need to avoid this bad news or whatever, right? But for the mayors, it was something a little different. They had their projects of things that they wanted to do for their villages. And most of it had to do with potholes and roads. Some of it had to do with flooding, like in Finili Agate or in several areas of Mauricio, or for Mayor Savaris at the time, it was the condition of the road near the cockpit where the cockfight, I don't know if it's still there, but in that area of Machinano. Anyway, so each mayor had their thing, right? And the thing was, to get the mayors to support the administration at the time would provide the funding so that the mayors could do their projects, so that the mayors can take credit for getting those projects done for their constituents. All of it had public purpose, right? Except for the whole hiring thing. That was absolute cronyism. That there was no public purpose behind that. Anyway, so it's not such a big surprise that you would find out that the current administration, using the power and the incumbency, they're trying to get another 4 years, right, through the Gina campaign, the Josh and Tina campaign. It's not that much of a surprise that they would do those sorts of things, right? But I am absolutely floored. Like, Republicans, you know what? If this is the name of the game, if corruption is how it's going to be to the end of time in this island, and I really hope not, but, just on scale, right? You guys need to pick up your corruption game because you are being bested by the Democrats. Like, the Gina campaign is taking it to a whole new level. The fact that, and all of this came out in a legislative session that the governor called, trying to get money for all these different places. And Jesse Alec, the president of the Mayor's Council, is like, I don't even know why we're here. We're not even included in this. However, we would like to bring something up. So he and his executive director, Joy Jean Manzanonia, were like, look, everyone, last Friday, let me tell you what happened, because this is unbelievable, because this is corruption. It was like, last Friday, the Department of Administration called and they're like, hey, you can't encumber funds through your Mayor's Council thing because this is what's going to happen. We're going to write checks to all 19 mayors, and it's going to be for this much money, and it's going to bypass the fiscal controls of the Mayor's Council of Guam, and it's going to go directly to all 19 mayors, most of whom have pledged their undying loyalty and support and vote to Gina just days ago. And so the executive director of the Mayor's Council takes Ed Byrne. I have never seen that man so scared in my life. Takes Ed Byrne to task. He's like several people away from Joy Jean Manzanonia. And she was like, this is wrong. I don't even know if Joy Jean Manzanonia or Arceo is an accountant. Ed Burns, an accountant by trade, like, but she was schooling him on basic accounting, and she was like, "This is wrong. How are we supposed to have any fiscal controls? This is," and Senator Duenas is like, Joy Jean or Miss Arceo, do you believe that this is something that should have been whatever? She was like, no, no, no. This isn't about this. All of it needs to be taken back, and it needs to be reissued the right way. And it didn't even, it's such an exciting exchange that happened. I'll play it for you in just a minute. It's such an exciting exchange that happened. It didn't dawn on me until afterward. I was like, oh my gosh, this is political bribery. Like what the administration just did was issue a bribe to mayors using our own money so that the mayors can help them to remain in office, to be in control of our own money. It's just, you see how, like, the story of the Calvo Tenorio transactionalism in 2014 just pales in comparison to the Lou and Josh transactionalism of 2026. Like, I don't know what they think it is that happened in the Calvo Tenorio days, but I'll tell you this much, my dear friends. I will guarantee you this. This administration is far and away more corrupt than the Calvo Tenorio administration ever was. And coming from me, you know that that's a big freaking deal. We are going to play now that 10-minute clip because it's very exciting. Here it is.
Million allocation balance from Sinlaku.
Correct.
And then let's move now to Bobby.
Senator, I want to talk about Bobby.
Please.
Because I'm glad that DOA thinks it's easy to just stop the process in the middle of the game and issue checks for the mayors to deposit into their non-appropriated funds and without any kind of reconciliation. And this is the frustrating part, is we're always chastised for not using our money. We're always chastised for not following whatever it is they want us to follow. And sure, thank you for the $250,000. And thank you, Governor, for signing it to us. We all got the $250,000 to each mayor's office, and 100, thank you, Senator Ada, and Senator San Augustine, to the mayor's council admin office. What happened on Friday, just this last Friday, and we were following procurement code, following the law, sending in our requests for procurement to the executive director. Everything is fine. Friday, we get an email. You know who gets the email? Our accountant.
Okay.
Gets an email to tell us that we can no longer encumber any more of this money because a check is going to be written out to the mayor's office, and the mayor's office is going to deposit it, perhaps, into their non-appropriated funds account and figure it out from there.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Joy Jean.
So, Senator...
You mean to tell me that...
There's no reconciliation.
They basically said
DOA.
no money is left that's available, and they independently wrote checks directly to the mayors?
Correct.
All 19 mayors?
Correct.
And for them to deposit that in a non-appropriated account?
Unless they're depositing it into their own personal account. And the issue, the Senator, that I have is that there was no communication between DOA and our admin office to reconcile before issuing these checks. What kind of balance did they use? I mean, even in your own personal account, you don't write a check if you don't know your balance. And we would know what our actual balances are. Encumbrances versus expenditure. We went through the whole this whole issue during the budget and how much $2 million we have. But you didn't, we know what our books say. And we have been working on using prior years. We have been working on trying to expend all the money that we asked for. And in this case, this just needs to end for us, because that's all I can tell you, is that we were not consulted and we don't know. So our advice to the mayors is not to cash that check, because we don't know what their actual balances are. Now, if they choose to cash the check, so be it, but then you have vendors out there that might not get paid, invoices that are floating that she doesn't know of. That's number one. Number two, who's certifying those funds? That's appropriated funds. It wasn't a grant. It wasn't a donation from anybody. Those were appropriated funds by this legislature. And we want to follow that law. But for some amazing reason, we all have big checks in our hands, and I don't know what we're going to do. We're not. Most of us are not cashing it. Some might. They have that prerogative. And that's what's holding us back now. So if you want to say how much our balance is, well, it's like 1.6 or 1.8 million from Bobby. And then purchase orders that were sitting on her desk getting ready to be issued to the mayors, about 30 or 40, are no longer valid now because there's no money.
Georgina, I have to bring you in here. Sure. You're not going to certify any of those funds in non-appropriated accounts, are you?
So, absolutely not. This is where you put the council in a very bad predicament, because I had over 202 purchase orders that my accountant had certified. I had signed those purchase orders based on the balance we've had. In the middle of Friday, when I'm told that their accounts are closed and the checks will be cut to individual mayors or remitted to them, now that puts me in a very bad position, because I've certified funds, I've cut purchase orders, and I would really appreciate it if DOA would have called my office so that we can meet on this. Because again, this is appropriations, it's taxpayers' dollars, we have to be accountable for this.
Ed,
I don't understand what was the middle of this.
Ed, I need you to address this.
Certainly, sir.
Please.
The legislation says disperse the money to the mayors. That's what the wording says on the legislation. So that's
appropriation, if I may, is taxpayers' money that we are responsible for.
May I now finish?
And why didn't they, Senator, if they were going to give it to us, why didn't they give it to us before they deposited it into DOA's account or through DOA, like they did in other instances? Why in the middle of the game, without proper notice, without reconciliation of accounts? This is what's mind-boggling.
May I finish now?
Please.
Thank you. I mentioned a few moments ago that the wording was different between Sinlaco and Bharvi. The legislation for Bharvi says disperse. Disperse means pay. So that's what we did. 17 out of the 19 mayors have taken the view that Mayor Alec has taken, and if they send the money back, that's fine.
Ed, I have a problem with that though. Ed, this is my time now. I need to question you on that.
Well,
you have done. I mean, this is appropriation, Ed. You're taking an appropriation, bypassing the council, bypassing their internal controls for contracts and everything else that they're going to pay for these and purchases that these mayors are, and they're depositing it to a non-appropriated fund, which generally is not designed for these type of appropriations, especially when you get an appropriation from this legislature.
I wouldn't have done that if the wording were different. The wording says, pardon me, the wording says disperse.
Why didn't you communicate with the council? They're in total shock here as far as the council and their accounting, and we're dealing with an individual that is definitely account responsible by her very nature. I mean, she just said on the record that she will not, those mayors are on their own spending that money and could get in trouble. You're saying they don't have the capability. Of course they don't, because that's why the Mayor's Council has a structure for issuing purchase orders and honoring those purchase orders to the proper procurement methodologies.
Well, I think the communication between the Mayor's Council and DOA, both ways could be improved. But I will take the money back. We will do that. Two of the mayors decided that they preferred that way of doing the business. But I have to remind the body again, that is what the law that was passed in this room said.
Ed, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna really have a big problem with your independent determination of that, bypassing the proper procurement protocols as discussed right now by not only the president, but by their chief operating officer in order to certify funds. And I think that was an arbitrary decision, especially with no communication verbally or in writing. And I think they should not have to turn it back into you, Ed. I think you should recall those funds and distribute them through the proper process.
If that is what the mayors want to do, we'll do that.
I think that's the only right thing to do. I'm sorry to all those mayors, and I'm going to apologize to them right now out there that are sitting there and they already tell their own president and their own accounting officer that they're in limbo to procure to begin with, and now they're taking a chance by taking this check for $250,000 that you issue, put it in their non-appropriated funds, which is usually donations or other things that they get outside of the appropriation process from this legislature, an appropriation from this legislature that the governor signed into law, and go out there and write a check and say deposit this in non-appropriated funds and go shopping. I think that's just wrong.
Okay. So we did not tell them where to deposit. However,
that's the only fund they have, Ed, other than the mayor's council's account.
You know, we thought we were doing the right thing by dispersing it. That's, again, if I remind you, sir, that's what the law said. If the law had said something different, like it did with Senlaku, then we would have proceeded in that way.
I think the law of accounting should prevail. Joy Jean, you do not approve of this process at all, do you? Please wait till your mic comes on.
How about this? Of course, absolutely not. That's very irresponsible, physically irresponsible. That's the short answer to it.
So you agree that it should be recalled?
I don't agree with any of these amounts to be deposited into a NAF account that's not monitored.
Thank you.
Because regardless of how you slice it, you put everyone at risk here, including the mayors.
Thank you, Joy Jean, and thank you for taking that very strong, appropriate position.
And so we want to know, the mayors want to know now what happens with the remaining funds because of the 4.8 million, Mr. Burns. We've accounted already for 3.2. So the remaining, they're hungry for the money. They want to go utilize it right now. But what do they do with it? The checks that they have, that they were told to pick up.
So many different things to discuss here, starting with the political bribery, right? Then the next being the difference between non-appropriated and appropriated funds. We're talking about appropriated funds. We're talking about public funds. Like, this is your taxpayer money. And there's a process for the spending of taxpayer money. It's not just a process, there's a law about it. So you hear Ed Byrne going back and saying, you know, it's because you guys said disperse it to the mayors. But what about all of the other laws that were not waived? There was no notwithstanding about all the other laws, about like the certifying officer law and that big point that was made. Like, how the hell do you certify these funds? How are these mayors going to spend this money without certifying these funds? And how is that going to be legal? It's going to place any mayor who spends that money in, they can be indicted by the Attorney General tomorrow if the Attorney General found out about it. And the AG has not been shy to indict mayors. We've seen that happen. So, I mean, so many different ways to have this. I could not believe what I was hearing, what I was watching when I was watching it this morning. And I was like, boy, this administration really takes the cake when it comes to corruption. A bribe in plain sight with our own money. Anyway, joining us right now is Senator Chris Duenas. I don't know if he's as excited about this subject as I am. Good evening, Senator.
Half a day, Troy. I think I got my excitement out on the floor, but yeah, it's still very exciting.
I mean, Do you see it the same way that I do? Like, what are your uh what are your thoughts? Your unabashed thoughts on
Well,
this?
let's start by saying what a blessing Joy Jean is to be over at the mayor's council. She's been there for a few years now, and the reason why she was so excited and really upset was she has a very, very strong procurement and accounting background, and she actually was at GSA for a while. She knows exactly what she's talking about. And so my thoughts are that it's such an interesting development. But let's start from the beginning real quick here, Troy. The governor called us into session on the 15th of July. And that was right in the middle of us discussing the budget. And this is exactly why I said no. And I'm glad the speaker and the leadership and everybody else said no. We're not doing this. We're not stopping our budget process because we're gonna hurry this because I don't like the way this feels, and I need detailed information on this $42 million appropriation, for three purposes, right? And now it's bearing out. It was a good idea, but here's what's really interesting too. As we approach this, and you saw the memo that I read out this morning, that I was going to go detail on this, a full panel, not just, Ed and Lester, okay, you need this money, see you later. And so here's what's interesting. Department of Education just yesterday received their $500,000 of the $1.2 million appropriation for them to run the shelters. And then we find out the day before that, all of these mayors were issued these checks. So I'm thinking, it doesn't take a really smart guy to figure out these guys are emptying the bank, knowing that we're going to have a detailed discussion about this issue to provide a backdrop for why they need another $13 million. So, and not only that, but I mean, in this fashion, it was like, wow. And so here's another thing. I talked to several mayors. And one mayor, and I won't say, what gender or whatever else, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but one mayor said, look at my accounting of my check. It actually isn't the $250,000. There's like 5 expenditures on the note side of the check that I didn't even spend. So I don't even know what this reconciliation is. So it's not $250,000. It was light, probably around $60,000. And so they were being charged for something they didn't even procure. So that's how much of a mess it is.
Wow, that's interesting. I wonder what other quote unquote mistakes there are and how much it adds up to. And really, at the end of the day, I'd like to know who's getting rich.
It's just, and the only way to control things like this is to give the appropriation and do it in the right way, which is through their fiscal office, through their fiscal officers with proper procurement that honors purchase orders and every other way to do it the right way. Other than that, you just don't know. Now, I did get a couple of texts from other mayors saying, hey, we're getting some contracts and contractors that we're trying to keep online to do a few of our repairs and everything else, and they're going to walk if we can't pay them. And I'm like, listen, you're under a procurement that, if you've gone through the process and submit the proper paperwork, you should be able to honor those agreements if it's done right. And so a couple of the mayors were like, listen, we're just talking about more time here. And I said, fine, we can do time in terms of this appropriation, but we're not going to circumvent the process. And they were fine afterwards. They said, we understand that. So they just came back and said, can you make sure we have enough time and it doesn't expire? Because here's what did happen. And I will give this. Joy Jean was really being very a stickler on the issue of the executive order gave 30 days. And the law mentioned the executive order as well. So the administration also, by the time Senator Sean Gumatato had his oversight for Sinlaku, they had already said they shut down the mayors too. And some mayors were complaining about that. They closed all the accounts and said, there's 10 million left, whatever you procured, we're done and we're closing it out. So they actually have 1.8 million still from Sinlaku. So they said, listen, can you just help us unlock that and ensure that we can continue with the repairs and the things we need to do? And then we're fine as long as you give us proper timelines. And I said, we can work on that, but we cannot bless this process because this is just, it's ripe to get everybody in trouble, to allow for writing of a check and put in, I mean, just the title of the fund, non-appropriated fund. I mean, it just makes sense. Putting an appropriation to a non-appropriated fund is just, it's not the right thing to do.
Do you know who the two mayors are who accepted the money?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I know there was one direct deposit, I think, into a certain account, and everything else was checks.
I know direct deposit was to Sinajana Mayor Robert Hoffman. I got that information from the Mayor's Council. I don't know who the other mayor is, though.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm sure that probably. I don't know if canceling the checks is gonna do the trick with that, but I know that Ed was saying basically he knows that has to be clawed back and redone in the right way.
What about his argument? He was essentially blaming the legislature. He said that this is because this is what the law said, that the law said disperse to the mayors.
I didn't have time to go back, but I think Senator Chalahi covered that. I actually think the language is the same with the two storms, and so I have to go back and look in that in detail. I didn't get a chance to follow up on that before I left, but I don't think there's any disparate language, and it seems like they just did it this time. Like I said, the timing is just suspicious, just because all kinds of checks have been going on in the last few days, knowing that they were coming in to sit for this appropriation discussion in the committee of the whole in detail.
The suspicious timing, Senator, is these funds being dispersed to the mayors in the most bizarre, that's to say the least, way, while several of them are shouting in the microphones at pocket meetings, "Let's go Guam! let's go Guam! Let's take all your money through these funds." I mean, it's just incredibly, it's crazy to me that it's happening right out in the open.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the senators made a mention that what was the purpose of these checks being issued? I mean, was it for endorsements? I don't know, but it certainly is just not the right thing to do. I mean, that's all I can say.
Oh, what about this issue with, and I think you were the one who brought it up, like how do you even certify these funds and if they're in the non-appropriated, like how does that process even supposed to work out?
I think that's the biggest question. Now, I will say there are a few mayor's offices that I am familiar with, that they had picked their councils, quite well in terms of having. I think one mayor that I know actually has an accountant on their planning council and the like. So I mean, I know that they have various mayors have certain stronger capabilities with regard to procurement internally, but I still don't think that that's going to matter. I doubt in their office that it's probably going to be the mayor putting themselves on the line, and I think that's why Joy Jean said to a certain extent, you're actually getting them in trouble, or putting them in a spot to where they could get in trouble, because I just don't think it's possible. I think that Joy Jean and the internal operations of the mayor's council and their fiscal officers are the only way that happens. Other than that, since it's a non-appropriated fund, I guess they spend and they hope to reconcile it correctly.
Yikes. But without the certification of funds, they could get into trouble with the law, couldn't they?
I believe so, and then I don't even know how I don't even understand how that manages quotes, because I think even under emergency procurement, you have to do at least some due diligence in terms of selection and saying, what project am I doing and how am I paying for this and how did I do this selection?
You know what, I need to this darn fly that keeps flying on my darn face throughout this interview. I sorry. Sorry, it's very distracting. I need to do a FOIA to the mayors about uh, whether any payments have been made to Comfort Cuts or to any Tenorio company ever since the whole Sinlaku event. I'm getting concerned now that. Anyway, yeah, that's just a side note for myself. Senator, what else was discussed after that issue? I wasn't paying attention, and I definitely did not watch the continuation at 2 p.m. What else significant happened?
So I think the biggest thing was that Department of Education, to go on to that now, is like I said, they just prior to this hearing, they did receive 500,000 of the 1.2 million to run the shelters. It's kind of interesting because there was some exchanges with a couple of other senators that said, "Oh, well, how should they request?" And it's like, well, if they, because they need the money, they ran these shelters, and they're doing good work over there, and then it was like, well, a direct payment request, is the proper way to do it. Well, they deposited the 500,000 without a direct payment request and not the full 1.2. So I basically said, well, education, you better request right now, so that you can get that, because you did the job, and it's the law. The law wrote in also that they get that money for the 5 shelters that they were running. So it looks like that's going to work itself out to where they'll be made whole here quite quickly. And then aside from that, we basically kept breaking down, what are the actual requests, and it looks like it'll probably come in less than what the request is. Most of it's overtime. And then, of course, we discussed, and I'm going to go into more detail on round 2 tomorrow morning on why does it seem like it's the governor's office that's basically running this. We started to direct some questions over to Homeland Security, and I don't know if that's because of their current status and their high risk status, and I don't know. And we got to finish up by my other line of questioning will be along the lines of, we're getting a lot of reports from the agencies that they're being, told to use their revenue and their capabilities of doing either procurement with purchase orders, or they're encumbering these expenses as part of their budget. So how does that reconcile with the request? And that goes for Sinlaku and Bobby, saying, if what's this chunk of money if these guys are using their budget? What's the process? Are you going to reconcile that and replenish their accounts for using their money? Or so that, I think that's going to be probably one of the most intriguing things as well.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you, Senator, because I've been involved in multiple emergency activations and recovery efforts, and I have never encountered a situation like we're in now, where so much reliance on local funds is being had. Before it was there was a flow of cash from the feds, and there was a quick reimbursement from the feds. Is the reason that we're relying so much on local funds for recovery because of our grant status predicament with the feds?
It could be, and then also I just think that for some reason I think there's also an appetite to appropriate excess funds. I mean, I think a lot of these, during our time, Troy, I mean, if we had something like this, it did have to come out of the the budgets of the agencies, and so a reworking would have to be done, and sometimes it would be transfers and other things.
You just
to be able to
cut your expenses in order to be able to afford these additional things that you need to do. But most of it was federal funds or reliance on federal reimbursements.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's also, that's also reconciliation too, right? Because they're talking about how MOAR funds are still coming in. I want to also get on the record tomorrow. There's still this crazy mold mitigation thing that we can never figure out whether it ever even happened or whether there is ever a procurement. And that was the 20 million that originally went to DOE. That was supposed to be DOE's, and they made the mistake of sending it to DLAN, which is to be operated out of the out of the governor's office and office and Homeland Security, and then it's kind of has been in the abyss for the whole time. So that's also one of those things to where it's unprecedented what we've done for all these storms right now. Really, is put a massive local appropriation up front, and it's really supposed to be, if we're in good standing. When we talk about the cost share, these projects, especially the overtime and the other stuff that's the most expensive up front, green waste and some of these things, those things should really be the ones that should come in a reasonable time. It's the mitigation projects that usually take longer.
Yeah, like why is
that's
why is the legislature having to appropriate money for overtime? That's 100% covered by. There's even a different overtime amount. It's different from the government of Guam overtime. It's double. It's like the double pay when it comes to a federal disaster declaration, and the feds pay for it.
Yeah, and so that's going to be, I think, the bulk of the line of questioning tomorrow. It's going to have to pivot, because really we've already pretty much got, and we know what the agencies, like even brought in National Guard and Mr. Dueñas, basically just said, listen, we handled it. I mean, we've got contingencies for this. So all the guard deployment and everything else, that's all been paid internal with their funds. So that's covered. So there's a situation. I think really it's time to pivot over to Homeland Security and pin that down. And you're right. I mean, it just seems as though some of the normal upfront costs and operational costs the money's not flowing, and that's what we got to find out.
I don't know, Senator. I'm far more hyperbolic than you guys are, but everything tells me, everything in my gut, my intuition, and also just taking a look at all this stuff tells me that the money that the administration has at its disposal, and this is our money, this is public funds, are just being used in the service of continuing the administration. It's being used as election year fodder, as from hiring more people to giving out raises to these bribes now to the mayors. It's just a bit ridiculous.
And I guess, well, my feeling on it as well is that this is really, a lot of this is being done under the guise of once again, appropriation authority, when we know that the typical fiscal discipline is to have to live within what you have. And the thing is if they have the cash resources, meaning the excess revenue right now is been verified for June at $88 million. I mean, the reality is most of these things should be able to be encumbered and handled within what they have already. So when you basically say the balance of everything available in this fiscal year is appropriated, it certainly creates an opportunity to have the cover to use a lot of money.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything, Senator?
Well, we're going to be as meticulous as we can be. I mean, we certainly understand that, we have to support those that are doing the work to make sure that we can, keep our island running and do the preparation and recovery. I got to say that I think that, even Department of Education operated with Sulaco without anything, so they're demonstrating that, they have the internal capabilities and fortitude to do their part. So we just got to be a stickler on this one and hold the line as close as possible. I'm hearing the airport situation is going to be probably the one to watch, because I guess they're going to come in and explain that there's something very, very dire in that situation on the horizon. So keep an eye on that one. I think this is
at some point, Senator.
Yeah.
Is the legislature going to say, "Hey, you guys keep coming asking us for a lifeline here. Have you guys cut staff? Have you guys cut your budget? Cut your expenditures? What are you guys doing? It's not some big secret that the tourists aren't coming because ever since the pandemic. Like, what has their survival plan been, aside from let's go ask the legislature for more?"
Yeah, those are going to be the tough questions on that one, and I understand. I guess it's probably going to come down to some relationship in terms of how they're discussing their fiscal year budget and how it factors into fees and their operations. And I think that's where the rubber's going to hit the road. So they're going to have to definitely present a lot heavier in terms of how they've done their due diligence to do this. And I still am not happy with the fact that they've never received that 9 million reimbursement for the fuel tax that's really been lingering for a long time with all this excess revenue for several fiscal years now that the governor's had. And I know that that revenue source is definitely significant in terms of how it affects this situation as well. So I think that's going to be the big one to watch. I think we'll finish up this Bobby tomorrow, and then we'll go to child care. I think they might be the ones also kind of being put out there, because I did get some information while we were in budget session that amount had gone down and that the reimbursement is flowing. That's a reimbursement account. So that got a little bit bigger today when I was talking with Ray Gibson on his show this morning, that we had a caller from one of the centers call in and say, it's not just the cash flow, but it's everything with the operation in terms of that exchange. So that looks a little bit deeper than just an issue of reimbursement. So I don't know that figure has to be exactly as that as well, because I think it's just a matter of, it might be inefficiencies in terms of managing the reimbursement. So this whole thing really looks a lot like, it really looks a lot like it's an operational issue as much as it is an appropriation issue.
I'll try to catch up with that issue, because I understand that it's causing quite a bit of consternation. Thank you so much, Senator. I really appreciate your time.
Sure, absolutely. And we're going to do our best, Troy. I mean, we definitely have to hold the feet to the fire, and we'll see where we come out on the other end. I know that some senators were thinking that this was going to be the ability to do some other work tracking these excess revenues, but I think that that's one of those things that we'll have to do when we're in the fiscal year of 27. But I can tell you that the economy is working in terms of that revenue coming in. But it's just really the accountability at this point that's the problem.
Got it. Thank you so much, Senator. God bless you, and you have a good night.
Thanks, Troy. Have a good night. God bless Guam. Bye-bye.
All right. Exciting stuff happened today, and I'm glad for it. And I'm glad for Joy Jean Arceo. Also, Jesse Alec and Chris Duenas. That issue was resolved right in front of our eyes, by the way. Ed Byrne was like, yeah, I'll take the money back. Don't worry. So it's transparently right in front of our eyes. This is the beauty of open government. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Join me tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for the Friday news analysis. Until then, good night and God bless you all.
Tony and I got married at an early age, and back then, we didn't have much. But from the very beginning, Tony was determined to create a better future for our family. Shortly after we were married, Tony joined the Army, and we moved to our first duty station at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Those weren't always easy years, but they taught us the importance of sacrifice, faith, and commitment. What I've always admired about my husband is that he's the same person at home that people see in the public. He's honest, he's humble, and he genuinely cares about people. He's a devoted husband, a loving father, and a proud grandfather. Tony and I have been together for 43 years, and I've been blessed to stand beside him through every chapter of our lives. I'm Annette Umpinko Ada, and I humbly ask for your support and vote for my husband, Tony Ada, for Governor of Guam.
I'm Tony Ada, and I approve this message. Together, we'll put Guam first.